everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are talking about my most anticipated releases for the first half of 2022. So these are the books that I am interested in that are coming out in January through June. I'll be making another one of these videos around June or July for my most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. These are the ones that are piquing my interest at the moment. So these aren't necessarily all books that I'm definitely going to like buy or read this year, but things that that I'm very interested in, I want to keep tabs on. I probably will be reading quite a few of these throughout the year, but these are just the things that I want to like keep an eye on and I'm most excited about at this moment. Also, just a note, of course, release dates are subject to change, but to the best of my knowledge at this moment, this is when these books are being released. I'm also just going to put the general like month that the book is released, not like specific dates. What else? Also, I'm not going to be doing super detailed descriptions for each of these books. This year I decided to take a kind of more casual approach to my anticipated releases video. Last year, I was much more organized. I had a spreadsheet, I had notes, I had all kinds of things, and it was exhausting. And just made it like less fun to do this type of video when this is like just a really fun kind of video to do because it's all just excited about books that are coming out. So this year we're doing it more casually. I got my laptop here and I got my Goodreads page open. So we're just gonna be looking at Goodreads and chatting through some of the books that I'm most excited for. Okay, those are all of my disclaimers, my whole intro, whatever. Let's get started. Before getting into the January releases though, I do have two books that don't currently have a release month listed, but they do say 2022. They're probably going to come out in the second half of the year, so you'll probably be hearing about these again, but just in case they come out in the first half of the year, I wanted to mention them. So, the first one is The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang. This is the first book in a sci-fi trilogy, which I believe is their first full-length novel, which is very exciting. It is described as a retelling of Joan of Arc's story with a space opera giant robot twist about the nature of truth, the power of belief, and the interplay of both in the stories we tell ourselves, which sounds amazing. Also, I discovered this year that I love Neon Yang's books. I read their whole Tensor series and loved it, so I'm very excited to really just see anything that they publish. And it's great because one of my intentions for 2022 was to read more sci-fi, so this is perfect. This will like encourage me to read more sci-fi. All right, then the other one that doesn't have a release date yet is a untitled book by Talia Hibbert, but is the first book in the Skybriar series, which is a spin-off series, is contemporary romance, is a spin-off series from the Brown Sisters trilogy, which I really loved, so I'm very excited to see a spin-off from that. Okay, so now diving into January releases. The first one, of course, is a Wayward Children book by Shauna Maguire. So we have Where the Drowned Girls Go, which is about, I believe, another school in this world. So in this series, we follow these children who end up at Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children because these are kids who have found their way into a magical portal world and then been forced back out, and now they have to like kind of reacclimate to our world, but apparently there is another school called the Whitethorn Institute, and it says there is another school for children who fall through doors and fall back out again. It isn't as friendly as Eleanor's Home for Wayward Children, and it isn't as safe. So it sounds like we're going to be learning more about this world through learning about this other school, which is very exciting. Also, I believe in other books in the series we've heard of the Drowned Girls, or there's been reference to like the Drowned World. So interested to learn more about that also. Another book from an author that I've read before is Murder of Crows by Kay Ankrum, which is the first book in the Lethal Lit series, which I believe is a YA contemporary like mystery thriller. about a serial killer who stages his murders after the death scenes from famous books. Now, here's the thing. This doesn't sound like the kind of thing I normally read. I don't read a lot of like contemporary YA. I definitely don't read much mystery or thriller. But I have, at this point, I think I've read everything that K. Ankrum has written, like all of her full novels, and really enjoyed all of them. Even the one, Darling, which is, I believe, a kind of a contemporary YA thriller, and it's a Peter Pan retelling, so like, which I don't even like Peter Pan retelling. So anyways, the point is, even when the books on the surface don't sound like my kind of thing, I have a lot of faith in K. Ankrum at this point that I will enjoy pretty much anything that she writes, so I'm going to give it a try. Then we have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan, which is the first book in the Celestial Kingdom duology, which says it is a captivating debut fantasy inspired by the legend of the Chinese moon goddess, in which a young woman's quest to free her mother pits her against the most powerful immortal in the realm. I've been hearing really good things about this from early reviews. I know a lot of people are very excited about this one. It has a beautiful cover. And yeah, I'm very interested in this one. Another one that I feel like I've been seeing quite a few people mentioning is The Amber Crown by J.C. Bedford. So it is an epic fantasy in which 3 societal outcasts must work together to fulfill the orders of a dead king's ghost or risk their nation falling to a tyrant. There is a captain of the High Guard, a healer witch of the Landstrider band, and a clever assassin, which that sounds like it's going to be a interesting like combination of characters. I love that there's a healer witch in this. So that sounds really interesting. I don't love the cover for this one. Like, I like the colors a lot, but sometimes these covers where it's just like crown, just like doesn't tell me a lot about the book. Not super into that, but story sounds interesting. So, and then the last one in January is Temple of No God by H.M. Long, which is the second book in the Hall of Smoke duology. I don't know, is it a series? I'm not really sure. But this is a companion series. So I just read Hall of Smoke in December and enjoyed it. There were a couple of things about like pacing and stuff that didn't quite work for me, but there was a lot about it that I did really like. And I think the world is really interesting. So I'm excited to read more in this world, and the fact that this is actually following a different character, so maybe we'll get to learn more about the world in different areas of it or different things about the culture, which is one of the things I liked most about the first book. All right, so those were all of my January releases. Now let's get into February. So first up in February is This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. This is a YA fantasy. It says clashing empires, forbidden romance, and a long-forgotten queen destined to save her people. It is an epic romantic trilogy inspired by Persian mythology. Which sounds like it'll be really interesting. I have not read anything from Tahereh Mafi before, but I've really been wanting to try something from her because I know that a lot of people really love her books. I did recently get Furthermore, which is one of her middle grade books, so I'm hoping to get to that one soon, but I'll be really interested to try a YA fantasy from her. Also, I feel like this color for this cover, like this sort of yellow gold, is becoming a lot more popular in book covers. It's a very eye-catching color, so I'm into it. Okay. Then we have A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, which this is a book that I just have a feeling from the cover that I'm going to like it. I don't know if that is accurate. That is not necessarily the best way to pick a book, but there's something about the cover that just makes me feel like I'm going to like this book. But it says, House of Earth and Blood meets The Witch's Heart in a brilliant first adult fantasy set in the magical Isle of Cadence, where 2 childhood enemies must team up to discover why girls are going missing from their clan. Now, those comp titles, I'm not sure about this. I did read The Witch's Heart. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I liked it well enough. And then House of Earth and Blood, I believe that's by Sarah J. Maas. Clearly, I don't really follow her books. I'm not a big fan of Sarah J. Maas's writing, so I'm not sure how I feel about this with that being the comp title, but I'm going to be optimistic. And then we also have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, which I believe is about by Axie O, which I believe is about this place where they have to sacrifice a girl to the sea god like every year or however often, and then one year our main character like dives into the ocean and takes the place of the girl who was meant to be sacrificed. But then of course when she gets to the spirit realm and to like where the sea god is, things are not as they seemed, and I think she gets like sucked into some kind of like mystery or plot or something like that. So that sounds like, I know it's a very vague description, but I think it sounds like it'll be interesting. This one also has an absolutely beautiful cover. I really like the colors and how like swooshy it looks. So I'm very excited about that one as well. And then one of the books that I'm like most excited for, like this might be one of my most anticipated, is Scorpica by Greer McAllister, which is the first book in the Five Queendoms series. And it says, a centuries-long peace is shattered in a matriarchal society when a decade passes without a single girl being born. Uniting the stories of women from across the queendoms, this propulsive, gripping, epic fantasy follows a warrior queen who must rise from childbirth bed to fight for her life and her throne, a healer in hiding, desperate to protect the secret of her daughter's explosive power, a queen whose desperation to retain control leads her to risk using the darkest magic, a near immortal sorcerer demigod powerful enough to remake the world for her own ends, and the generation of last-born girls, the ones born just before the drought, who must bear the hopes and traditions of their nations if the queendoms are to survive. Which, that just sounds like it's going to be really interesting. It says it is perfect for fans of Robin Hobb and Circe. I just feel like I'm going to love this. I really hope that I do. It just sounds like it's going to be really, really good. So that's one of the ones I'm just like the most excited for. All right, so that was February, and so now we are on to March. So first up is All the Horses of Iceland by Sarah Tolmie. This is a historical fantasy novella that is delves into the secret imagined history of Iceland's unusual horses brought to life by an expert storyteller. I recently read another novella by Sarah Tolmie, which was The Fourth Island, which I had kind of mixed feelings about, but I'm interested to see what All the Horses of Iceland is like. Also a beautiful cover. I love how like soft focus it looks. So looking forward to that one. This next one, I am not sure, like I'm interested, but I'm not quite sure. Okay, this is called Tell Me an Ending by Joe Harkin. So it is a dystopian debut about a tech company that deletes unwanted memories, the consequences for those forced to contend with what they tried to forget, and the dissenting doctor who seeks to protect her patients from further harm. What if you once had a painful memory removed? And what if you were offered the chance to get it back? Now, I think the obvious thing here is that this is a book about memory and the ability to remove memories, which is something that I tend to really like in books as a theme, which is what has kind of intrigued me about this. I'm not sure how I feel about it being like dystopian and like a tech company. So it feels like it's going to be more modern. Most of the ones that I've really enjoyed that kind of had these like themes or dealt with this topic were more like historical, either fantasy or sci-fi. I'm just not sure about it being dystopian and being about like a modern tech company. But I'm still very interested in the fact that it's about like deleting memories, because that's a thing that I like, so I'm intrigued. Okay. Then we have Lake Lore by Anna Marie McLemore, which is a young adult novel about two non-binary teens who are pulled into a magical world under a lake, but can they keep their worlds above water intact? And that's kind of all I want to know about it. There's like more to the description, but I have really liked things from Anna Marie McLemore before. I really like this cover. I'm very interested in this like magical lake idea, so I'm into it. All right, then we have The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdul, which says Luli al-Nazari is the midnight merchant, a criminal who, with the help of her jinn bodyguard, hunts and sells illegal magic. When she saves the life of a cowardly prince, she draws the attention of his powerful father, the Sultan, who blackmails her into finding an ancient lamp that has the power to revive the barren land. Which that just sounds like it's going to be really good. And then the last one in March is another one that I'm not sure how excited I am or not, but I'm interested. I'm gonna keep tabs on this, see what reviews are like for it. But it is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Eileen, which is the first book in the Book of Tea. So I think that this is going to be a duology. And it says, I used to look at my hands with pride. Now all I can think is, these are the hands that buried my mother. So I think that this character was accidentally or was somehow forced into like accidentally poisoning her mother. And then something bad happens to her sister and she ends up having to join this like competition in order to save her sister. Which I don't always love those kind of like, oh, you have to like join a competition kind of stories, but I do like the idea of a book that's about tea. So I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. Now on to April. I have a couple of books, one of which is In a Garden Burning Gold by Rory Power, which is about twins imbued with the incredible magic and near immortality will do anything to keep their family safe, even if it tears the siblings apart, which is the first book of a mythic epic fantasy from the best-selling author of Wilder Girls. So Rory Power, I know, is a very popular author, wrote Wilder Girls, was a very popular book. Wilder Girls, and I don't remember what it was, but the other book that came after, that she wrote after that, it doesn't really seem like my kind of thing, but this one does sound interesting. I think this is her first like epic fantasy or high fantasy story, so I do really want to give it a try. Also, this has an incredibly beautiful cover. This is one of my favorite covers of these releases. This is so pretty. But yeah, so again, a lot more to the description, but that sounds interesting. All right, then we have Spear by Nicola Griffith, which is a novella that I believe is kind of an Arthurian retelling, but I think it's more about like the backstory of the Lady of the Lake. It says the girl knows she has a destiny before she even knows her name. She grows up in the wild in a cave with her mother, but the visions of a faraway lake come to her on the spring breeze, and then when she hears a traveler speak of Artos, king of Caerleon, she knows that her future lies at his court. So I am always very intrigued by like Arthurian adjacent books. I don't really like things that are directly about like King Arthur, Guinevere, Lancelot. Like those characters, not so much. But some of those like kind of adjacent stories intrigue me. So I'm interested in this one. Then, okay, the next book is the second book in a series. I have not read the first one, but I'm going to soon, and I feel pretty confident I'm gonna like it. So I'm putting this on anticipated releases, which is Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. The first book is Black Sun. I just recently hauled it. I'm planning to read it in January, and I feel pretty confident that I am going to like it because I've liked other things from Rebecca Roanhorse, and the second book, Fevered Star, is coming out in 2022. I'm not going to read anything about the description because I don't want to spoil myself. Then also in April, we have Kekai by Vaishnavi Patel, which they say is a mesmerizing debut that shines a brilliant light on the vilified queen from the Ramayana. It is a tale of fate, family, and courage, and heartbreak of an extraordinary woman determined to leave her mark in a world where gods and men dictate the shape of things to come. Which I always love these kind of books, or I always like the idea of these books that kind of reimagine and flesh out characters that maybe we don't know as much about or are often vilified, so we kind of get their perspective on things. So I'm very interested in this kind of retelling from the perspective of the vilified queen from the Ramayana. Also, this also has a beautiful cover. Okay, so that was April. Let's get into May. Have some exciting things in May. So first up in May is one of my most anticipated releases, like most anticipated releases of the year, which is Seasonal Fears by Shauna Maguire. So this is the second book to Middle Game, which I loved Middle Game so much, but I believe that this is a companion series, so we're following new characters, which is something that kind of comforts me about this book, because when I found out that there was going to be a sequel to Middle Game, I was a little bit concerned because I really loved it as a standalone, and I was like, I don't know if it really needs a sequel, but I am going to be optimistic about this for two reasons. One, because it's a companion book, and so we're not continuing on with the same characters, because I really felt like their story felt very complete in that one book, so we're going to have a new story. But also because I have faith in Shauna Maguire, and she has a lot of series, and I believe that she knows how to write a good series and like good sequels. So I'm going to be optimistic about it. I don't want to know too much about this, although honestly, from reading Middle Game, I feel like no matter how much I know about this, it's probably not going to tell me a whole lot about the book. Like, Middle Game, like how you can explain it versus like what the book is actually like, it just, there's no way to explain what the book is like. But I do believe that we are following another set of twins, one of which I think is winter and one of them is summer, hence the name Seasonal Fears. Okay, then we also have Book of Night by Holly Black, which I think is her first adult book, which it says that it is a modern dark fantasy of shadowy thieves and secret societies in the vein of Ninth House and The Night Circus. I read neither of those. I'm not particularly interested in either of those, but I do still kind of want to try Book of Night. I'll probably listen to this one as an audiobook because that's how I read most of Holly Black's books, or maybe I think I've only ever read her books as audiobooks, and I really like them that way, so that's probably how I'm going to do this one. All right, and then we also have Bravely by Maggie Stiefvater, which is about Merida from Brave, but this takes place after the events of the movie Brave. And usually I'm not really a fan of this kind of book where they have authors write about like a character from a Disney movie or a superhero, and like it just never really interests me. This is the one exception because one, I love Maggie Stiefvater and I believe that she will do a great job with this, and two, I do like Brave, and I think that this particular combination of Brave and Maggie Stiefvater just seems like it will work really well. So I feel pretty positive about this one, and I probably will read it. I might do that one as an audiobook too though. All right, and finally we are on to June. So in June, first up we have For the Throne by Hannah Witten, which is the second book in the Wilderwood duology. So the first one was For the Wolf, which I read earlier this year and I enjoyed it, and I'm curious to see where the series goes. The first one was kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it had like a dark magical forest. It seems like that's going to continue to be involved, which I always love a dark magical forest, and also it seems like there might be some kind of dark portal involved. But yeah, so I'm curious to see where this second book goes. Then we have Moon Dark Smile by Tessa Gratton, which is the second book, another like companion series, but the second book to Nightshine, which came out last year, I think. And so this is following, I believe, the child of some of the characters from the first book. And I don't really know anything else about the plot of this, but I'm going to read it because I enjoyed Nightshine. I love Tessa Gratton's books in general, and I am excited. I also enjoy that they have redone the covers for this series because the cover for Nightshine, the original cover, was not great, but I really like these new illustrated covers that they're doing for the series, so that's good. Okay, then also in June we have Locklands by Robert Jackson Bennett, which is the third and I believe final book in the Founders trilogy, which I've been waiting for. I was hoping it would come out in 2021, but it didn't. It's 2022, but it's definitely coming out in June. Super excited. This is a series that has just like this really interesting magic system where you can like convince items to act against their nature with scribing magic. It just is like really interesting. It's kind of like magical coding. There's a character who can like communicate with inanimate objects. I really enjoyed the first two books. The first one was my favorite. The second one was still good, but maybe not like a favorite. I'm hoping that the third one will really like bring it all together and be a great conclusion. Also, this series, I always love the covers. I love the like black cover with the pop of color. Beautiful. So excited this is coming out. And then the final book in June that I have does not have a cover yet, but it is The Wild Hunt by Lucy Holland. So Lucy Holland, I read a book by her earlier in 2021, which was Sister Song, which I really enjoyed. And so this is another like historical fantasy standalone, which I'm realizing now I know almost nothing about. But it says, once an Iceni war chief Hurla was tricked into spending 3 days in the fairy realm, but a century passed for each day she feasted, and when she and her followers emerged, it was to find Iceni wiped out and Britain overrun. Cursed to bring death to all she meets, Hurla now presides over her grim court, dreaming of vengeance. Then, in 710 AD, orphaned and raised in a monastery on the edge of Dumnonia, 18-year-old Crida spends what she believes to be her last days in study, until the night Ine of Wessex slays the king and lays waste to her home. Desperate to escape, she flees west, but when Crida loses her way on the moor, it's Hurla who assists her. Hurla realizes that to befriend Crida is to risk the girl's soul. Okay, we're gonna stop there, but that sounds really interesting. I have enjoyed another book from Lucy Holland, so I'm very interested in that. I'm very excited to see what the cover for this looks like because I feel like it's gonna be great. Okay, so those are my most anticipated releases for the first half of 2022. I feel like there are quite a few books from authors that I have read before that are coming out with books that I'm really excited for, which is always exciting, and also some new to me authors that I'm excited for. But I'd love to know, what is one of your most anticipated releases? Are you excited about any of the books that I was talking about today? But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!